Hey everybody, welcome back to Strange Appalachia for this episode. It's kind of going to be a playoff of the last episode. Um, we're going to do the Cumberland Gap Tunnel. Um, Cumberland Gap Tunnel it's actually a tunnel that sits under the pinnacle there between Virginia, Tennessee, and Kentucky, and it's on 25E, US 25E, near the Cumberland Gap Historic Park, which that whole area up there is awesome. If you ever get a chance to hike it, there's a trail up there called Mishawaka. It takes you up to Hensley Settlement, and if you ever decide to hike that trail, it's a pretty tough hiking trail, but you get some awesome views off of a cliff face, pretty much the entire trip. So it's a really good trip, really good hike.
For
Um,
sure.
it's a tunnel. I've been through this tunnel hundreds of times. In my younger days, I used to do a lot of travel down into Kentucky, and I've been through this tunnel a lot. It heads over into uh, what is it, Middlesboro? Is that right?
Yes,
Murfreesboro? No,
sir. Absolutely. Middlesboro.
Middlesboro's Kentucky, and that's a pretty neat little city. We used to travel down there some and shop. It actually kind of reminds me a lot of Kingsport, so it's a pretty neat place. And so the reason I say this tunnel is a play off of last week's episode, or the last episode we did, is because there's a handful of conspiracy theories that are around this tunnel, and I'll let JD tell you about them.
Sure. So some of these I've actually heard from a couple of friends of mine that live down in that area. And I think researching the last episode, which was the Swift Silver Mine, I think I actually came across the original post that these people are pulling this information from. And some of these do fall into the conspiracy theory side of things. The big one that I want to talk about does. Um, but like I said, when I was researching the Swift Silver Mine, I came across a website that a gentleman has where um, he had talked about some family members of his were describing a silver mine in the area that is now the Cumberland Gap Tunnel. So little bit of history on the tunnel. It does connect, um, the three states there, and it was built in the early to mid '90s. So relatively new in the grand scheme of things to make travel between the three states a little easier. I think primarily it actually connects Tennessee and Kentucky. I think is
Yeah.
the actual direction that it goes. Is that
Yes.
right, Charlie?
Yep.
All right. So anyway, this tunnel. Before that, it there was a windy mountain road that went, of course, across the top of the mountain, and it was very dangerous, and there were a lot of accidents. So
Yeah.
they decided to put this tunnel in to make it a little safer.
They called that stretch of highway Massacre Mountain because there was so many traffic accidents on it.
Yeah. So so basically, the first conspiracy theory or the first thought there is that mountain actually housed Swift Silver Mine that we talked about in the last episode, or a silver mine or a gold mine similar to the Swift Silver Mine. Now, we talked about the last episode why it's not very likely that there was any kind of a ore mine of any kind in this area. But the conspiracy is that the government, when they came in and made the tunnel, excavated all of that silver or gold, and profited from it. Which, in the grand scheme of things that the government does, that's probably one of the smarter things that they've pulled off, if indeed they did that.
Yeah.
So that's the first one. You want to throw in on
Yeah.
that before we move on?
One of the craziest things about this tunnel, at first it seems pretty nonchalant. Um, they actually started the actual project to start the tunnel was started in 1979.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that's a quite a bit of time between the actual start of the project and the finish of the project. You
Sure.
know, the other thing is is that the tunnel was opened and closed a lot between the start and the finish of the project. The project would start up, and then something would happen, and then the project would shut down again. And like, um, they put a pilot tunnel in first. At one point in time, there was a leak. Um, they had some clay infillings, limestone formations, and caves, and multiple underground springs and streams, and that opened up into the tunnels. What I'm reading here,
Mm-hmm.
and made a huge leak. And so you would almost think that they would have to know about those things before they started drilling into this tunnel, considering, it's been 8 years since they said they're going to start it, and now here it is. They just happened to get that. So there are some mysterious circumstances around that tunnel.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at, and we've talked about this on here before. This area is known for its karst topography, a lot of limestone, a lot of stuff like that, and caves are something that are very very common, and springs, and big open holes in the ground basically, and that is something that they definitely were plagued by, and that moves me into. Uh, I think if you're good, moving into the sort of the main point of this episode, the big conspiracy theory, I guess you could say. You
Yeah,
good?
go
I
ahead.
move there.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the big conspiracy theory is that um, there is actually radiated chromium water from the 3 Mile Island nuclear disaster in New York that was actually dumped there underneath this tunnel, or as part of this tunnel. Um, so to give you some background, 1979, the 3 Mile Island nuclear plant, which I don't even know that it was open when it melted down. It may have still been in the building stages. Do you know any more about that? I didn't look into that very much.
No, I didn't look into it at all, actually.
All right, so the 3 Mile Island partial meltdown, whether it was open or not, I don't think it was open for very long. If it was, um, occurs, and so obviously, anytime there's a nuclear meltdown of any kind, there's going to be some time lapse before anything can be done with that area. Um, so basically, what happened is around that same time period, 1973, Congress approved the construction of the tunnel, but they didn't actually authorize it until actually a few months after the 3 Mile Island meltdown in '79. So they go in, they take this reactive water out of the 3 Mile Island nuclear reactor, and this water is irradiated with chromium, an element called chromium, and so different people were contracted to come in and take that stuff out, and basically what it boils down to is there very soon after that, and I don't have the exact date, there is a tannery in Middlesboro that actually used chromium as part of their processes. And starting in '79 into the mid '80s, mid to late '80s, um, there were a lot of cancer reports that went very, very high in the area. And so basically, they linked this thing back to this tannery in Middlesboro. Um, and so the tannery took a lot of heat for that. And basically, this report seems to think that this tannery had a very very state of the art chromium evaporation system, I guess is the best way, or treatment system. So the thought is that the federal government contracted with these people sort of on the down low, that they would use um, their system of treating chromium water um, to treat this water out of 3 Mile Island, and that because they're using more than what that system was designed for, it overloaded the system, and it seeped into the groundwater there just outside of Middlesboro, and people ended up getting cancer and other stuff from it. So that was sort of the I guess main point of the thing, and that it also matches up a little bit with some of the actual not just water but nuclear material that came out of 3 Mile Island getting put underneath the tunnel as it's getting built in all those limestone caverns and stuff that are under it. The timeline for that sort of matches up, and there's a weird delay where they were about to start building the tunnel about the time they realized they needed a place to put all of this nuclear material, and then all of a sudden the tunnel building got bumped about 2 or 3 months, basically long enough for them to pull this out and move it there. And there's some sort of correlation, and I can't exactly follow it based on this report that I'm reading here. But the original report I heard was that there's some correlation between the company that built or that made the tunnel and the company that pulled the waste out of 3 Mile Island. And it's really weird to think about, because just me sitting here thinking about it, you're like, man, there is no way that they lost nuclear radioactive material, but there is no report or no paper trail of what happened to that sludge after it left 3 Mile Island. There's really, it just says it's going to be disposed at an off-site location, and it never really says where that off-site location is. So the fact that it got a weird 2-month bump there sort of matches up with when that sludge left 3 Mile Island. Now, in the grand scheme of things, I don't know how much stock I would put into this, because there's not a continued amount of high cancer rates, although even though now that there has been an environmental cleanup happen, there's still some trace amounts of chromium that are found in the water consistently in the area, even though it's not enough to maybe lead to cancer. So there's some weird stuff going on there for sure. Who knows if it's related to the tannery or if there's actually stuff under the tunnel. But good Lord knows that in the grand scheme of things that we talk about, government conspiracy is probably the more believable outcome here than Wolfman or Bigfoot or stuff like that. So, it's certainly interesting.
The government's not above hiding stuff in mountains at all.
No, they'd never do that.
Yeah, and I mean, the Appalachian Mountains, they've been exploited a lot, with mine shafts and just mining in general. Cover-ups happen all the time with things like that, and they always have. And so if you go back to 1979, in that era, there would have been much less oversight than there is now.
Yeah, definitely leading up through into the Cold War and things of that nature. They wouldn't hide anything for sure.
No, not even a little bit.
I mean, it's not like you put something underground and satellites can't see it anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely a crazy conspiracy theory. You'd almost think that you'd be able to just find a Geiger counter and drive through there and see if it pegged.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't know, and it could have just been a temporary housing if it was there. It's not saying that there's not been some process since then we figured out to deal with it, and it's been removed. But it's definitely interesting to stop and think. Like I said, this, in the grand scheme of things we talk about, you've got a much higher shot of being able to convince me that the government covered up something and hid it under a mountain than that Bigfoot's running around or there's a upright walking wolf.
Well, I mean, even Bigfoot itself can be a conspiracy theory.
That's true.
There's tons of that going on. So, Well, some other cool facts about that tunnel, though. There's only two tunnels like it in the U.S. That one and the other one. Let's see, what was that? The other one is in West Virginia. So, and they're called sub-mountain tunnels. So, and that's pretty interesting. So it's actually, I mean, it's bored right through the mountain. It's not just like a through a holler or through a little side point.
Yeah,
You know,
no, it's dead
through.
center on it, just about.
And I've been through there before when they've shut the tunnel down so they can bring something hazmat through the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, at first it doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you get down there and you see them close stuff down, you know, and there's prohibited hazmat, but then there's the ones that they allow. They'll block it all off, and they get an escort from beginning to end.
Yep. And so it's also worth pointing out, going back to the material. Most of the nuclear material, the main stuff, is accounted for, but there's some of the waste products that have gone missing, sludge and stuff like that. So when I talk about that, that is what I'm talking about, not the main nuclear stuff. So you're talking about the Geiger counter. It may not even be enough to register if it's underground on a Geiger counter, but that it leaks out in the groundwater. So
Huh. You may
again,
not.
like most conspiracy theories that you'll run into, it's mostly circumstantial stuff, but it's stuff that when you look at it, it might be circumstantial, but the timeline matches up eerily similar.
Just like everything else, it's enough to make you stop and think.
Yeah, yeah. But
Um,
that's all I had on it. That might be a little short on material tonight, but
well,
you know,
two news articles came out this week. I'll talk about real quick. The first one, anybody out there, you can Google it on or go to YouTube and look it up. Just Google dinosaur in lady's backyard, and there's a video from her security camera where this thing runs across her yard, and it looks like a dinosaur. I don't know how else to describe it. It looks like um, the Velociraptors from Jurassic Park, but much smaller. And it's just there for a second. And you know, anytime you're dealing with a dinosaur, your first thought is it's some kind of bird. Um, but this thing's tail is large. It's not a small tail. It's not a bird-like tail. It's a, I don't know, a dinosaur tail is the only way to describe it. And so that's a really interesting video. I myself think it's a hoax. I think that they've taken a dog or something and dressed it up, but it's a cool video, and it, you know, one of those things you wouldn't expect it to go viral, but it's definitely strange if you watch it. And then the other one,
I'm
um,
watching it right now. So just as a note, I'll let you know what I think.
the Pentagon came out this week with a video of a triangle or a pyramid UFO, and they've said that they have no idea what the origin of this thing is. It's flying over one of their ships. I can't remember the name of the ship, but it's flying over one of the Navy ships. And yeah, if you watch the video, there's something there. It's not one of those videos where it's something kind of fuzzy, you know, and you can't tell what it is. It's definitely
Uh,
triangular shaped. It could be focused better, but you can definitely see something there.
all right. So after watching this video of the dinosaur in the yard, it's definitely an interesting video. Has the Velociraptor movement to it, but I don't know why there would be a Velociraptor with a collar on. So
Is there a collar on it?
there's a collar on it, from
See,
what I can see.
I didn't see the collar. I saw the tail.
Um, yeah, it looks like there's a collar on it to me. So I'm going to go with. Um, Honestly, it doesn't move like a dog, so I don't know that it's a dog that's been dressed up, but something's going on there. I think it's also a hoax, with something that's just moving fairly weirdly. Could even be edited in, but it
Yeah.
definitely looks to me like there's a collar on it.
Or maybe it's a pet dinosaur.
Could be. Um, if so, somebody in Florida, you're missing your pet dinosaur. Found this lady's yard.
Well, That's pretty crazy. I know that the UFO video, that's one of the strangest things I've seen, in a long time. And I mean that they're getting closer and closer to disclosure on UFOs, whether you believe in them or not, or believe they're alien or not. The government's already came out last year, because of coronavirus. A lot of people missed the story, but the Navy, there was a Navy, I want to say he was a captain, maybe even been higher ranked, but he said that some of the stuff he said or he saw, he didn't believe it was of this world. And one of the prime ministers in Israel, one of their space, I want to say their space prime minister, or that's probably not the correct term, but he actually came out and said that there was, I think it was 5 races of aliens that we are in talks with, and we have contracts with.
All right, so the UFO video also falls into the category of strange.
Yeah, dude, that video is weird.
I don't even, unless somebody's out there with a really big flashlight, I got nothing on that one.
Well, I mean, it could be some kind of a drone. It's probably something from another country or another military, more than likely. But the guy I heard interviewed, he sounded genuinely perplexed. And of course, I mean, when you're dealing with high military officials, that's part of the job, is to sound perplexed. Like you don't know what's going on, when in fact you do. But
sure,
it's an interesting video. So anybody that wants to see something weird, check out those 2 videos.
Sure. All right, does that wrap us up for the week?
That wraps us up for this week. I don't have
the
anything
episode, I guess, because we're definitely off our weekly schedule.
Yeah. One thing I want to throw out there, this weekend, we're going to start a new channel. It's not going to be anything paranormal related. I don't think it may end up being that way, but because me and JD, we like to do a whole lot of outdoorsy kind of stuff, we're going to call it Lawson Boys Outdoors, or just the Lawson Boys. I don't know how we're going to do it yet, but we're going to start and do our first outing this weekend for that. And basically, it's just going to be us, out in the woods, camping, hiking, doing things like that.
Yep.
So stay tuned, get ready for that, because hopefully we'll have that up and running here soon.
Yep, and that does not mean that Strange Appalachia is going away. We're still going to focus on this. We're just going to, make use of our time outdoors, and when nothing strange happens, we can take advantage of that time as well, and use some of our other footage. So Strange Appalachia is not going away. Those of you who love this channel, all 15 of you, I think, that's left at this point, or however many, hopefully there's more. Don't get discouraged. We're going to keep this up and hopefully move back into doing some investigations. We've definitely got one lined up for sure, and several others that are hopefully coming in the near future.
Yeah, this whole COVID thing, it's becoming less and less restrictive, especially here in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's going to open up a lot of opportunities for us. I am going to say this. We've got, I think, 500 subscribers, or 500 people following us on Facebook, and that's amazing. I know they're not all watching our videos, but something I'm kind of proud of. We got that many people.
So shout out to you all. You all rock. Keep watching the videos if you are. If not, share us around for those of you that are, and help us out. Keep us going. But with that being said, I guess wrapping up for the week, same thing I always say. If you've never watched a YouTube video before, the way you do this is you go down, you like and subscribe to us so that we can know that you like us. Leave us a comment if you want. Tell us about some weird story you want us to talk about, research, hopefully even at some point investigate. You got ideas or places in mind, let us know. We're more than happy to research, investigate, come hang out at the very least, that type of thing. And also check us out on Facebook, Strange Appalachia on Facebook. So, yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah. All right. Y'all take it easy.